Hey, I just finished trying to meditate with the video that I made yesterday, which is the one on boundary dissolution. Is there a boundary? And I think it's a good video for anyone who doesn't come naturally to self-inquiry because it shows different questions that you can use to maintain the focus. There's the primary question, is there a boundary between the seer and the seen? But if you prefer to have your eyes closed, for example, you could look to see if there is a boundary between the hearing, the hearer, and the heard or the sound, right? So it gives you a couple of different options there. It shows a third option asking, where does the subject meet the object? It shows what to do if you feel you find a boundary. You focus on the boundary, ask, is this a true boundary? Switch back. Then after you've looked at that for a little bit, switch back into what is aware and kind of start over from there. It shows what to do if you find no boundary. Rest. Can you rest in that no boundary? It shows what to do if the mind says the body is the boundary or a part of the body, like the head is the boundary. Um, but for me, it was too fast. It was, like I said, it wasn't really a guided meditation. It was a demonstration. And the real goal isn't to sit and follow that video. The real goal is to sit and have a natural inquiry experience yourself. But again, some people have said they don't really know what to do. And so this does give different examples of what you can do with the mind in order to maintain the focus, in order to maintain the investigation. But remember that it's really, even though the mind is asking the questions, and even though the mind is being focused, it isn't the mind that's doing the investigation, not the thinking mind. It's the attention, the awareness, the openness, the curiosity. There's even an intuitive feeling into the question, into direct experience. Maybe, it's easier to say, instead of thinking about the question and trying to come up with the answer intellectually, it's looking into the direct experience. Because the thinking is what creates the idea of me and that, right? Me and that. So this is what we're investigating. Is the mind's idea of me and that true? But I can't investigate if the mind's idea is true with the mind. So I need to investigate with intuitive feeling, uh, awareness, awaring into direct experience. And so again, the previous video, the one on boundary dissolution, asks some good questions. But for me, they were too fast. It was a good training video. But if this is new to you, and if you don't find inquiry happening naturally for you when you're on your own, then listen to that training video a few times. Let the mind learn the different questions, the different ways that you can approach the inquiry, but then go into the inquiry on your own at a more slow pace without the questions coming so quickly. Ask the question, is there a boundary between the seer and the seen? And then allow some silent time for the investigation. Only ask the question again if you find the mind wandering and you need to bring it back. Or only ask a different question if you find this isn't really working for me. I need to shift back into what is aware, or I need to, I'm being distracted by a sound, so I need to shift into, is there a boundary between the hearing, the hearer, and the herd? Just let it be natural. In fact, let me share with you what's in the inquiry guide and the introduction. Now, I think in the previous tips video, I asked you to read this guide a few times, and hopefully you did that. But let's review how to be during inquiry. So the following tips apply to all of the inquiry practices in this guide. Learn them well. Drop all effort to understand, and that means mentally. Drop all effort to understand and just rest in the unknowing. I often call that the openness. And watch the mind's tendency to want to grab onto a conclusion. Openness is much more important than conclusion, even though there's going to be some discovery that happens. It's the attitude of the openness is more important than the attitude of finding an answer. So drop all effort to understand, rest in not knowing. Don't grasp at insights. Let them arise and pass naturally. In fact, one thing we did, it wasn't really an insight, but we set the intention in the previous video. We set the intention during the boundary dissolution, noticed how important that intention was to us, and then we let it go. If you've read the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament, which I call NTI, in NTI Revelation chapter 1, it talks about how our job is to continue letting go until there's nothing left to let go of. That's true. Even with our insights, we realize the insight, we feel the insight, we know the insight, but we don't try to grasp it and keep it. We let it happen and we let it go. Our job is to continue letting go until there's nothing left to let go of. Don't grasp at insights. Let them arise and pass naturally. Rest in the pause after the inquiry before any response arises. And this is what I found when I was listening to the video this morning. It was too fast. Like I said, it was a 30-minute meditation, and there's lots of things that can happen in a meditation. And it was a demonstration of, different questions you can ask, different ways you can go. And it was great as a training video, but in a real natural meditation by yourself, there needs to be more pause, more nothing happening. Nothing happening is great. More nothing happening needs to happen in a natural meditation. So asking the question and then just resting in that pause, in that nothing happening. Nothing happening may be boring to the mind. The mind may want something to happen. It may want to have that insight, and then not grab onto it. Insight after insight after insight. Let go, let go, let go. That's an exciting meditation to the mind. But this isn't about the mind. The nothing happening part is really important. So asking the question and then resting in the nothing happening. That's a soft, natural meditation. So rest in the pause after the inquiry before any kind of a response can arise. Be the space in which the question and any responses appear. Or we could say, be the space in which the question and any insights appear. That's really important, that be the space. Be the openness. When the mind offers answers, you can ask, who sees this? I haven't demonstrated that yet. In the last meditation, I said, for example, if the mind says that the body is the boundary, what question arose in the meditation? I can't remember now. I don't even remember because I may have said shift back into awareness. I don't remember, but let me say this. What happens for me during inquiry is it's natural. So if the mind would put forth that the body is the boundary, then whatever inquiry arises into that happens spontaneously. And this is really where we want to get it. This isn't, okay, Regina said when this occurs, when the mind gets stuck on the body is the boundary, then I should ask. And that's not the way it works. We'll get to where the next inquiry comes naturally. And that's why I couldn't write everything in the guide. Because what happens in inquiries, these inquiries come naturally, but then they are let go, they are forgotten. I'm not sitting there taking notes. Oh, if this happens, you can ask this. And if this happens, you can ask this. And since I'm not there taking notes, I couldn't put it all in the Living Inquiry Guide because it's a spontaneous flow of investigation that gets kicked off on its own. And we don't necessarily remember those questions. We don't, we don't, there's not a cue card telling us what to do in different situations. This is a natural process that's going to take on its own life. But one question you can ask is, who sees this? That's very similar to what is aware. So if the mind puts forth that the body is the boundary, we could ask what sees this? What is aware of this idea of the body as a boundary, right? That's another investigation that can arise. But you want to stay with the investigation. Remember, it's not about conclusions. It's about investigating, being open, being the space that things arise in and that things fall away in. So when the mind offers answers to the inquiry, one possible further investigation is who sees this. Allow the questions to work on you rather than you working on them. You're not trying to figure this out. You're asking the question and remaining open. In fact, I noticed in the last meditation, I said, I said to rest in whatever was realized, but then if you don't feel that anything was realized, just rest in that openness. Again, this isn't about conclusions. It's not like, oh my God, you failed. And now in the last 5 minutes, you don't have a realization to rest in. It's not that. It's not that. If you're resting in the openness, there can't be any failure. If you're resting in the unknowing, it's perfect. If you're resting in the nothing's happening, it's perfect. If you're just resting in openness, it's perfect. If there is no conclusion, it's perfect. Rest there. When you're resting in that, you're allowing the questions to work on you, and you don't have to see the question working on you. You don't have to have any evidence that the question is working on you. It's perfect. So allow questions to work on you rather than you working on them. Be patient and kind with yourself. No judging of the meditation. No, oh my God, the mind was too busy today. I couldn't stay focused. If that's what happened, then you're aware that that's what happened. That's great. Notice that you're aware that the mind was very busy today. Notice that you're aware that there appeared to be no focus today. And then you could ask, what's aware of that? What's aware of the no focus? What's aware of the busy mind? There is no failure here. It's impossible to fail, really. I'm not just saying that. It's impossible to fail. So be patient and kind with yourself. This is not a race. This is not a test. it does become, you could call it an act of love. It's that simple. If there is frustration, restlessness, or boredom, or anything like that, notice they are appearances in awareness. What's aware of this boredom? How do I know there's frustration? What sees this? What is this restlessness appearing in? There's always another question. And again, and as I do these demonstrations, I'll demonstrate different questions, but as you get to doing the inquiry on your own, the flow of the inquiry will just start to happen. There's always another question. There's always a way to investigate. It's always a way to be in the unknowing, to be the openness, to be the space for the next thing to arise in, whether that be the next insight, the next annoyance, or the space in which nothing happens. There's always a way to continue the investigation and to abide as that openness. All right. In the last video, I recommended that you pick a daily inquiry. And I recommended the 30-second reset several times a day. But you could have picked any daily practice that you wanted. If you did that, and if that daily practice is becoming somewhat embedded as a habit, then it's time to pick another daily practice from the Living Inquiry Guide. So you would be doing both. So for example, if you picked the 30-second reset and you notice you're doing that, let's say 4, 6, 8, 10 times a day, and really it's a habit to do it, then let's pick another one. And again, you can pick any one that you want to pick. I kind of like the one that's just before going to bed at night. I'm looking to see what page it's on in the Living Inquiry Guide. It looks like it's on page 10. I'm looking on my phone. It's very small. My eyes aren't good, but I think it says page 10 out of 19. Right at the bottom, you'll notice it says evening integration, about 5 minutes before you fall asleep, before bed. And there are 3 questions there that you could ask. What is this that was aware before, during, and after this entire day? What is this that was aware before, during, and after this entire day? Practice with that inquiry for 5 minutes, after getting in bed, between the sheets, or before drifting off to sleep. Or you could practice this. What remains when there's no experience to be aware of? That's a good one. That's my favorite. I love that one when going to sleep. What remains when there's no experience to be aware of? And then whichever question you ask, or if there's another one that arises for you, or you could always just ask, what is aware? And rest in that. Or if your mind is busy, you can ask, what sees this busyness? What sees these thoughts? So again, spontaneous inquiry is great. But start, adding another daily practice, maybe before going to bed every night. So if you are using my suggestions, that means you now have the 30-second reset happening throughout the day. And then before you go to bed, you now have an inquiry that you use in bed as you're falling asleep. All right, that's it for this video. I have to shower, take a walk, and go see my dad. Bye.